Hey guys, welcome to saltygingertalk.com. If you're turning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, look, we're great at finding awesome people to come share things with you. We have done it again. So, our guest tonight is a guy named Daman Grewal. He is an entrepreneur, owns a logistics and trucking company up in Canada, but he has put together a free educational training tool particularly around sales. It's called logisticsales.com. So we're going to learn about Daman and his path from college student to business owner. We're going to hear a lot about this tool he's put together that he's offering. Him and his partners are offering to you for free. So the price is right. Super awesome stuff. I don't want to delay it any longer. So let's bring Daman onto the channel now. Here we go. So Daman, thank you so much for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. We had a great conversation not very long ago. So we've been kind of lucky to have some spots open up because usually we'll have our intro call with guests, get to know them a little bit, and then for a variety of reasons, it takes a while to get them onto the podcast. But we talked within the last 10 days, so that's awesome. So as I announced in the intro that the listeners already heard, you have a trucking company, but you're here to kind of talk about this platform that you've built around sales and entrepreneurship. That's a mentoring platform for sales and entrepreneurship. It's a free platform. So you're trying to, or you want to share all of the experiences that you've accumulated through your professional life and being an entrepreneur and help others through this platform, which I think is awesome. So what we usually do on Salty Ginger Talk is have the guest start with a kind of a bio of themselves, talk about how you started out in the world and how you made it to where you are. We can talk about, the things that are important or shaped you or you feel strongly about. And then we want to pivot to your platform and spend quite a bit of time talking about that. So I talk a lot right at the beginning and then I shut up. And this is the part where I shut up. So tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, so you nailed it. I do have a transportation company that I'm a part owner in, and then I also have a logistics company that we have, and kind of a serial entrepreneur. I kind of dabble in a few different businesses beyond that as well, but they're kind of in the startup phase right now that we're kind of exploring and going through. But yeah, definitely have had a lot of experiences in life that we're trying to share on the platform logisticsales.com. And ideally, the reason that we created it is because of how I grew up. And a couple background history for you is at age 4, my dad had taken off, and I was a child of a single parent. And there was 3 brothers growing up without a father, and we were always looking for guidance. My mom was sometimes working 2 full-time jobs at a time to just support the family, and we were also on social assistance at the same time. And she kind of used that as backup or security so that just in case she ever kind of lost her employment, that we would actually have some sort of income still coming in. But she was always working hard, and I got the work ethic from her, which was always about, make sure you put your best foot forward and just keep plugging away no matter what crisis you face in life. After that, I kind of got into trying to earn money for school. So after high school, I went to university for a tiny bit, and my scholarship money had ran out. I didn't really have any savings because I wasn't really working before then. And so I tried to get into a job market to just grab jobs and faced a lot of hurdles on that side too. I had a lot of success with a lot of the businesses that I did work at. And, from seeing business, how it operated unethically, I also got to see good parts of it, but I saw a lot of unethical stuff about business that eventually kind of led me to the road of opening up my own. And that was just having one bad experience after another bad experience after a third bad experience. And I finally just put my hands up and I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to just work with what's honest and what feels right to me. And I wanted to share that with the world too, and just say, hey, if you do business a good way and with good business ethics, a lot of good things can come from that. And that's just a better formula to live life. So you can face yourself in the mirror tomorrow. And that's kind of one of the main things is how are you living your life? And that was a big question I would have and say, I can't do anything that's unethical. Just there was something that was inside me that would never allow me to do that, whether that was lying to a customer, whether that was in our business, they call it back solicitation. So if you're working with somebody, it's like you don't harm their business. You don't try to undercut somebody. You don't try to go behind them and try to get business. There's so much business out there that the mindset of some of the owners that I used to work with, it just didn't mesh with what I wanted to, and how I wanted to be in life. And I always wish, even throughout my journey, that I had a mentor that would actually be able to help guide me, because a lot of times I just felt stuck because I didn't really know what I was kind of going through. Some of these jobs, I was told I was a office employee, and I realized, I was a safety manager, and I was, running companies 24/7. Had no idea about labor laws and how that worked, or I didn't know about even simple things like how much holiday time I was entitled to. And so I was working with a lot of these employers where, in one sense, I enjoyed the experiences, but on the other side, I also sacrificed a lot to be with them, and I didn't realize what rights I really had versus the situations that I went through. So I was always hoping there was somebody there to help guide me and give me some sort of direction and let me know that I had different options versus, one guy pulling me back into this business, somebody pulling me back into another business, and then just thinking that everyone's honest. That was my thought process. I never thought that, that you could be taken advantage of in business or with even being an employee. And even after the first trucking job that I was at, I waited a year just to see if I could save enough money to finish off my university. And when I couldn't save enough money for school, I kind of asked for a raise, and the employer was just like, you know what, Damon, we can't give you a raise. And, even though you did all the stuff that you did, I don't think anyone's going to hire you in this industry. So I don't think, getting a raise is an option here. And I had actually helped that company. They were about to go under at the time. And they had been called out by U.S. Department of Transportation for an unsafe safety record. And they had been fined, this is back in the late 90s, they had been fined $64,000 US, which is quite a bit of money for today's money. And me being an 18, 19-year-old kid was in this position of trying to help retrain every single driver that they had. And they were one of the larger companies up here where I'm from. And we had, I think, over 100 drivers at the time. And I was brand new to this industry. And I was doing courses from a driver perspective and then retraining the drivers based on being an instructor. And it was brand new information for me. But as a young kid, I was just told it's an office job. And I'm sitting there having these conversations with people three times my age, trying to teach them how to be in compliance and how to follow safety regulations. And at the same time, I was writing reports to the U.S. Department of Transportation. And within that year that I was there, we were able to create a whole new safety program for them and retrain all the drivers. And this is when when it comes to trucking and transportation, there's hours of service that had to be followed. And I guess this was the time where they were starting to enforce it a little bit more, where, again, the drivers could only drive a certain amount of time, but they had to log all their information. And then typically when I would look at their information, it was half completed and half not. And so I'm like, how are they getting away with this? It seemed common sense that, there's compliance here and compliance is definitely not being met. And so just retraining people, learning those hours, learning the geography for Canada, US was, again, quick learning curves to know how many hours is it from, let's say, from Vancouver to LA or LA to Ontario, Toronto. So just learning those routes and learning the different stops that they would be able to take. And again, big learning curve on that. So I didn't realize what type of position I was actually in as a manager versus just as a kind of an entry-level employee. But the way that they would make it sound to me was that, hey, you're being compared to someone that's just doing basic customer service or accounting work, admin work. And so, I kind of understood that, everywhere I used to go for training, people would always offer me double, triple my salary and say, hey, you know what? And people would even also actually offer me pieces of their company and say, hey, Damon, we're opening up a trucking company. Would you like to come work with us? So people, even at a young age, would be able to see that, hey, this kid has something in him. I didn't see it, but the people around me would be able to pick up and say, hey, you know what? He could speak, more than one language. He seems to pick up everything very quickly. I remember one time I was learning about hazmat, and I was being trained to be a hazmat instructor. And the guy barely spoke to me about actually being, doing the training. Instead, he was trying to recruit me half of the time. And then at the end of it, he kind of just gave me the manual and goes, "Here you go. And by the way, here, we'll certify you." And so, things didn't happen in the best of ways and back then. And you start realizing, okay, hey, who's cutting corners and who's actually doing things properly. And so, again, those type of situations that I've faced about employers trying to hold you down or people trying to put you down, trying to tell you you can't do what you think you want to do, just learning those programs can be broken, and just learning that that's really not the way that life really works. Sure, those are my experiences, but I definitely don't want anyone else to kind of go through those experiences to feel like they're stuck in certain situations. And so even after that experience, again, went to the next employer. Next employer, again, said, "Hey, we want you to run our transportation company for us." And I'm like, "Well, I have no idea how to run a transportation company. I used to be a safety manager." But they're like, "Well, you know more than us." And they had a lumber mill. And they said, "Hey, come on in. We'll, be our person that runs our transportation company for us, and we'll take the chance with you." And at the time, I was still trying to save money for school, so went in there and went through the situation again. Again, fast growth. I would always have fast growth wherever I was. Even over here, we I think grew from 1 truck to 8 trucks within 8 months. So again, picked it up really quickly, figured it out, and did everything from A to Z, whether it was accounting, payroll, operations, safety management. So you kind of combined all these, as an entrepreneur, you kind of, or as a small business, you're kind of wearing multiple hats. So you just kind of figured out, okay, hey, this is what we have to do. This is how we need to operate. I was the sales guy, accounting guy, everything. So wear all those hats. And originally the owner there had told me that they would be helping me maintain the company. And then after, so long with the company, I was kind of like, hey, I need a little bit of help here. I'm a young guy. I'm doing a job that's 24/7. And because we used to deal with the East Coast, the hours are pretty much around the clock. You don't really get a chance to stop because the trucks are rolling, and they're rolling 24/7. And you're the only guy that's on call. And so, when I asked for a little bit of help to say, hey, can I get some help with admin or something else? And same thing, somebody tried to throw the ego trip on us and say, hey, you know what, Daman, you're going to have to just deal with it, because they tried to get one of their employees to take over a little bit of it, but then they said transportation is way too hard. We don't want to deal with it. And then when everything gets thrown back on you, you're just like, hey, hold on. I'm not really the owner here. I'm supposed to be an employee, but I've been taking everything on, and you guys made me promises. And same thing, anytime those promises were broken, was something that just didn't sit right with me. Or anytime that I felt like I was being respected for being hardworking or being honest in those situations, something would just not align with me to allow me to be there. And even then, I just said, okay, well, if it's not working, then I guess it's probably time for me to move on. And even before I would leave any of these companies, I would make them a manual on how to run their business and put it all together and say, here you go. Here's a manual to how to run your business. I want to make sure that the drivers get affected by it. And, again, just going back to just simple business ethics or understanding people in general, like, being in the position that I was in, if I wasn't operating these trucks, these guys weren't making any income. And you don't want to ruin anyone's income just based on a situation or an argument with ownership. And that was something that I always kind of held near and dear. It was always about, making sure that I don't harm anyone along that process. And even, no one told me to put a manual together to help them run their business, but I was like, okay, I'll train the next person. Here's a manual. Here's all your customers. Here's how to do all the different steps of all the different, departments that are built up in the company. And you just pass it on. And it was just more like, let me do this on a clean slate where, again, my heart can feel good. And it's about, again, how can I face myself in the mirror tomorrow? And that was always something where that was always near and dear to me is can I face myself in the mirror tomorrow for my actions or my part in whatever I'm participating in. And then, again, I went from that company, I went to another transportation company because, again, I'm trying to save my money and do my schooling. And even at this company, when I started there, I started at $1 million a year in sales, and within 4 years, we're up to 24 million plus. And it was just again, rapid growth. Anytime I kind of jumped on with a company, they were kind of at a standstill, and we kind of changed the whole dynamic of the company and ran with it. And you got to see what made things work. You got to see how does this acceleration happen. And for me, it was a simple formula. When I get to see it from the background, it was like, well, just simple customer service. That pretty much was the main key. And then, yeah, like there's no real major formula to it, but just again, how do you do it ethically and with a good heart and being in service? So we always made sure that the drivers were making money, the trucks were operating and growing, and same with our customers. We weren't canceling shipments. We weren't doing anything that would harm their shipments when it came to transportation. A couple of those things happened in the beginning, and when I had the conversation with the owner, it was, okay, hey, we got to do it this way or I can't be here. It has to follow, again, basic business ethics. I didn't really know what business ethics was back then. It was just more something that I would just feel inside and say, hey, you know what, if we have a shipment that we booked with somebody, we're not going to take more money for the next one. It's like, once we're committed, we should be committed. Like, why is money going to be a differentiator? Because again, we want to be, for me, it was about maintaining that relationship and saying, hey, I don't want to be known for somebody that is jumping ship for $100, $200, $300, regardless of whatever that money was. It wasn't a matter of that. It was a matter of, hey, if we said something to somebody about committing to, let's stick to it. And so just learning about, okay, what values are making businesses grow? What values are making them accelerate that quickly? And then just having the understanding about the drivers, for me, was always putting myself in their shoes and understanding what they're going through. And, that was part of the 24/7, like every job I went into was almost like a 24/7 job. And so understanding that, okay, if these drivers are on the road 24/7, so I would always tell myself, like, hey, you can do it too. Like, we get to go home at the end of the day. These guys are on the road for 6, 7, 8 days at a time. And so you would pick up the phone, whether it came at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m. And obviously I wouldn't want to put anyone else through that. And so I learned that in my businesses, where it was more, okay, hey, hire double the staff, triple the staff, divide up the work. And so some of these basic principles, some people just, they don't care. Some employers just, if no one questions it, no one's really standing up for that, and say, hey, you know what, maybe we're getting overworked. Maybe we need to take a look at, a full approach to how we operate a business and how to make sure that our employee health stays up there as well, right? Like, you don't want to burn out. So I wasn't really taking much vacation time at all, and didn't even know, that I just thought, okay, hey, if I need to go on vacation, I'll ask for it. And yeah, I mean, there's no manual when it comes to running businesses. There's regulations if you look into them, definitely. But when someone runs a business, most of the time they don't even know what they're doing. If it's a small to medium sized business, and it's trying to figure that part out with them. And again, I wish I had somebody that would have told me, like, hey, Damon, are you making sure that you collect on your vacation pay? Are you making sure that like maybe some of the hours that you're working aren't the best hours or something, right? Like, you always wish that somebody would just have that little voice in your ear. Obviously, my mom was that voice. Sometimes our parents become that voice for us, letting us know, like, hey, man, what's going on here? And sometimes if it gets way out of hand, right? And sometimes it has to come to a point where, again, it's beyond expectations, right? But my mom was also that type of person that was working double shifts, that was working one full-time job after another. And so I didn't really see any difference on working a little bit longer hours. I thought it was okay. And good thing is I was at least able to finish my schooling.
So you did finish. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the goal. And so I got my schooling done as well in there. And yeah, and that the schooling was the part that gave me the confidence after to say, okay, at least I have something to show for my hard work. And I knew at that point I was going to stick in transportation, and that was and that was it. Having bad, again, that was another experience where I was promised ownership inside the company, and we were ready to take the next phase. And when I called the owner out on it a couple of years later, again thinking that there's going to be an honest relationship here, but I think when he made that statement, it was very early in the business. And I think when a business starts growing to that point where now it's a $24 million business, that any sort of portion of that just seemed too great of a number. And then considering like it was just me and him were the main two people that were operating the company. And so,
Do you think so it seems like you had a streak where you were working at businesses where they weren't really doing things in a great way, let's call it. Do you think they knew that they were doing things wrong and just decided to do that, whether it be for profit or because they didn't care much? Or do you think they didn't know? What's your take on that?
I don't think they knew. I honestly don't think that they really knew what they were doing. I think for them, it was just more about how do we just run this business, and how do we, again, if they're making money, how do I just keep the eye on the money type of thing. And you're so consumed by the business that you're not really thinking about regulations. So even when I was working with the company, if anything came up that was legal issues, that was handed to me. So I was going to whether through audits or court trials with different ministries of transportation and U.S. Department of Transportation, National Safety Code in Canada, but there was different authorities that I would have to deal with. And so I kind of learned that aspect of it, but we never had labor issues where we would look at labor laws. And so again, if it's not coming up, it's not something that's really coming into someone's vibration about, okay, what am I looking at holistically for my business, unless you have a really good accountant. But a lot of times accountants, when you're running a small to medium sized business, are also staying quiet too, because they don't want to ruffle any feathers, or they think everything's happening kosherly and they're not really actively involved in the business. And they're usually a third party that is getting the paperwork and everything else after the fact. And so again, unless that's being questioned and that's brought to the owner's attention, but in a short frame, like I said, we had a massive growth period in that 4 years. And prior to that, he was just running the business by himself. And when there's only one other person in that business, which was myself jumping in, besides, different family members that were helping part-time, then who are you really getting that advice from?
Did you? Yeah. So I get that. And I always I try to look at someone's intentions. So like you talked about, kind of a situation where the owner had promised you equity and then didn't deliver on that promise. That's a different situation. That's kind of an intentional change of heart and or lack of honoring an agreement. I always look at it and say, if someone doesn't know that they're doing something that's not great, I give them some slack. But if they're doing it on purpose, I don't give them a lot of slack. At least that's the way I think about things from a business perspective. But that's just me. And look, I've been in the grocery business for 30 plus years, so I'm very familiar with the trucking business, very familiar with the trucking business. And it's pretty cutthroat. Like it's, there's plenty of work because there's lots of freight across multiple businesses and categories that needs to be moved. But it's easy to see cash rolling in and think you're making money and you're not because just because you have revenue coming in doesn't mean you're covering all your costs when you look at all the associated costs with the business. And that can be very difficult. Did you intentionally choose the transportation business when you were looking, or was it just what was hiring when you needed money when you were in school?
I was actually working side jobs. So I was at a propane company at the time, and one of my friend's dad actually owned a transportation company, and he was friends with my other brother as well. And so he came over to the house to do some computer work. And this is back when flatbed scanners were a new thing, and OCR reading was new. And so I was helping him with some documentation. And I guess when the dad saw that, hey, this kid has some skills, he kind of just said, hey, let me get you an office job. And he just asked me what I was doing currently, and kind of told him what my goals were about going back to school. And so he kind of took me under his wing and said, hey, come on, and I'll get you in. And so that was kind of my start to transportation. Before then, I had no idea what a big rig was. The only thing I ever think I remember seeing was a dump truck, and so I had no idea
Yeah.
about what transportation or supply chain was even all about.
And what do you have specific industries that you've worked in, or has it been across multiple industries in transportation? I mean, have you hauled different for different industries? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of different. I'm heavy into produce, grocery supply chains, retail. We've done you name it. We've done anything from like jet engines to tanks. So it's we have a reference letter from the U.S. Navy that we received, and but yeah, anything that moves. Like if you bought it, they say a truck brought it, and so we pretty much touched a little bit of everything.
Sure, makes sense. And if most of the companies you worked at, including the one that you are an owner in now, do you own the assets or do you broker most of the loads?
We're majority asset based.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It certainly gives you a lot more control, but it's a lot more overhead too, right?
Definitely is, yeah. The model that I had with some of the previous companies I was working at was a lot of owner operator based models, but then again, industry had changed, and a lot of our model with our company now is asset based and owning all the equipment. We haven't been able to build that owner operator model as successfully as we wanted to, but yeah, I mean, there is a little bit extra headaches when it comes to all company owned assets and company drivers.
Yeah. Uh, and you had talked about logbooks not being kept current. Was that at the, it seems, I'm trying to remember, you said around the early 2000s, if I remember, late 90s, early 2000s.
Late
That was
90s, yeah.
about, that was about when they were starting to convert to electronic logs, wasn't it?
That was about 2010, 12, about
Was
there.
that, was that a little earlier than electronic logs?
Yeah, so yeah, for electronic logs, there was a mandate, I believe, around 2012 that come in, and that was when it was starting to get mandated. Possibly, maybe even a little bit later than that. I'd have to kind of go back and take a look and see exactly what year, but it was after 2012. Yeah, so it was quite a few years later. Before then, the paper logs were ideally what people would use, but then there was satellite tracking started coming out during that time. So satellite tracking would first come, and then slowly e-logs were developed. Probably early 2000s, about there.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, well, I just I'm in the same industry, so I just some questions that I was curious about.
And and just to give you
Go ahead.
context, like back then, our drivers used to have these calling cards because there wasn't really cell service
That's right.
back in
Yeah,
in Canada, US, and so these guys would have to stop actually at payphones to be able to call us on a toll free number, and they would be issued calling cards to be able to call back. But yeah, there wasn't really that. There used to be the big brick cell phones that started coming out at that time, and but yeah, it wasn't feasible to be roaming around all over Canada, US with that type of equipment, and especially the bills that would probably come from that. And
yeah,
sales was totally different. Our drivers would literally have to come back with phone directories from different states that they would travel in to give us that information, or different cities that they were even traveling in to bring that back for us.
yeah. I can remember. I was a buyer for a while, and so I was intimately involved in the transportation. Then I ran the supply chain at the largest grocery wholesaler in the United States for a couple of years. So I worked very closely with both our internal transportation team and our inbound transportation partners. We handled most of the outbound stuff because it's, two, three stores, and some of them are curfew stores. And on those outbound runs, you typically, from a wholesaler perspective, you wanted to control your outbound, and you could partner with lots of other companies on the inbound. But I can remember, back in the day, there were no cell phones. The heck, some guys carried beepers and some did not.
Yeah.
And when you had a hot load coming in, you were trying to track down the driver. It was like, he hasn't called in yet. He hasn't called in yet. Like, I need a call as soon as he calls in so I can have my warehouse ready to offload this truck as soon as he gets there, because I got to get it out to grocery stores so people can buy these groceries from us. Yeah, most people don't have any idea of all the work that goes into transporting product. You can just go to the grocery store and think things kind of magically appear on the shelf, but there's a lot of work that
Oh,
goes into
big
that.
time, big time. I know even during COVID, there was a whole thing about, why can't people just stay home for 2 weeks? And I would have to explain, like, well, if we all stayed home for 2 weeks, or if these drivers stayed home for 2 weeks, like, there would be no food in the grocery stores whatsoever. There would be nothing left, because all the supply chains would just dwindle down to nothing. Like, you wouldn't be able to eat. So, so someone has to keep the supply chain going, and that's when, again, people started understanding a little bit. Our drivers went through an extremely hard time too, because some of them, if they were staying at any sort of residence, the people would be so scared because of all this stuff that they're hearing about COVID, that they wouldn't allow these drivers to come back to the house. Because, like, hey, if you've traveled outside, we cannot have you in this on these premises. And so there was
Yeah,
that type of fear that was
it's
coming
funny too.
in.
Now, looking back on it now, it turned out to just be the flu for the most part. I mean, good Lord. Talk about an
Oh, wow.
overreaction. But yeah, it's my running joke in the transportation industry is a driver changes his religion based on what religious holiday is being observed that week. It was my that's my running joke. So around Christmas, the same guy could be Jewish, Christian, and celebrate Kwanzaa all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. So popular time to take time off, right?
Yeah, for sure,
Uh,
for
and
sure.
then we
Uh,
and then we had other drivers that would be like, well, Santa Claus sure ain't gonna pay me, so I might as well just get that extra load in there. So
Yeah, and look, man, that's that so some people love that job. I got a friend, he and I are starting a band together and he plays guitar and he's been a driver his entire life and he loves driving truck. Like as a kid, he said I wanted to grow up and drive a truck, and that's exactly what I do. So he loves
amazing.
the truck, but like that's a tough gig, man. It's not what people think. It's not sitting behind uh uh a steering wheel and listening to the radio. There's a lot to that job that people don't understand.
It's hard to be with your own thoughts for those many days at a time. It's not easy.
Plus, warehouses are not the easiest places to deal with. There's usually some type of check-in point, and you've got an appointment window. And if you arrive outside your appointment window, it's like getting a date with the prom queen to get your truck backed into a door. And most places have some type of lumping requirement, and so you can't necessarily just offload your own truck. And you don't just run the pallets off. Most places want you to downstack it to whatever the tie high is that they're going to put it away in the reserve. And so there's a lot of work to driving a truck, man. It's not an easy job.
It's not, and that's why they need the support. And so that was always something that I would understand. The 3 a.m. deliveries, 4 a.m. deliveries, the late night lumper calls about, hey, we got to pay the lumper, you got to send that column check and and everything else. But yeah, all that stuff happens. It's and like, again, maintenance, right? Maintenance. A tire can blow at any time. Or the other thing was, like, common was deer hits. And that's
Oh
something that,
yeah.
we don't really think about. But when you're driving through some of these, flat areas, there's wildlife coming out, and the same thing. Like, it's a big heavy machinery that you can't slow down or stop when it just jumps out in front of you. So you try to teach them defensive driving, and you try to say, hey, let's do some visual scannings. But when those situations occur, and even when it comes to, like, whiteout conditions, that was a big one that happens too. That some of the drifting snow, that if you don't know that highway and that snow is blowing and drifting in front of you where it's like full white, then again, you better know that road to be able to stay on it, and know those little tricks of the trade to make sure you're able to stay upright. Regardless of anything that Mother Nature throws your way, whether it's a hurricane, windstorms, or tornadoes. I mean, there's so many things that can happen on the highway that you're always in some sort of risk level when you're driving.
Yeah. Or the other knuckleheads on the highway. There's that too.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue. That's a whole other issue. But pretty much
Yeah.
seen it all. Seen it all. Yeah.
So, when you started up your own company, did you make the decision, hey, I'm going to go start a company, or did you get approached by a partner or another group that said, hey, we're starting a company, we want you to come with us? How did that process work where you went out on your own?
So yeah, this is, again, another thing is, I never wanted to go into ownership. I grew up watching some of these shows where the people that were business owners were always greedy and weren't always the best people. So I kind of had this thing in my mind about, hey, like business ownership is definitely not for me. I don't want to be one of those guys. But it wasn't until my hands were fully up from having all these bad experiences at different employers that the last place I was working at, every chance this one gentleman got, he was the sales guy there. He would always come back and be like, "Hey, Damon, let's go for lunch. Damon, let's go for lunch." And every time he'd take me for lunch, the only thing he'd ask me is, "Let's go start a business." And I'd be like, "Nope, not going to do it. Sorry, nope, not going to do it." And then finally, when I had enough of that place where I was at, I'm like, all right, I might as well take this guy up on that offer and start the business. And that was how I kind of started into the first logistics business. And so started that business, did that successfully for a little while. And we had another employee that came on with us that had a trucking company. And so me and him were working together, and he was looking to go on vacation one time, and he goes, "Damon, I just have the one truck under my company." He goes, "Do you mind running it for me while I'm away?" And I'm like, "Well, I got out of the whole trucking side. I'm in the logistics side." I go, "We work with so many different companies now that would probably be a conflict of interest for me that I can't really do that." And I'm like, "Why don't you just shut the company down?" Because I'm like, with one truck, you're probably not making anything either. And he was building, he was at a shipbuilding place, dispatching for a cab company, and he was doing all these other jobs just to kind of keep this other side afloat. And then I'm like, "Why don't you just shut it down and just let your dad work somewhere else, and you could go enjoy your vacation. Like, you don't have to take the worries and stress." And he goes, "Well," he goes, "it's more of a pride thing." He goes, it's a family business." And what I saw in him, and he seemed a little bit defeated at the time, and what I saw in him was like, well, he has the potential to really do this. He understands it really well, and he's doing it for free anyways. And so I just told him, I go, "Hey, well, if you don't want to close it down, can I help you build it? And can I show you that you can do it?" And then, prior to him even coming to work with us, I had actually helped his family set up the company and kind of teaching them how to run the company even prior to that. So, and I just said, "Hey, the same stuff I told you back then a couple of years ago." And he started in 2008, and so this is 2012 is when he came and started working with us. And 2008 is when he kind of when I went over there and tried to guide him. And I go, "The same stuff I taught you in 2008, I'm just going to do the same thing for you in 2012." And which at that time was just letting the parents know that, hey, he's a little bit young. He is able to do the trucking, but he's going to need the support, right? And if he could get the support, and I kind of gave him a couple tips that they could do. I go, he'll be able to run the company, like, take the chance on him. And so I just said, I'm going to do the same thing I told your parents, is I'll give you that mentorship and that support, and I'll show you that it's profitable. And I go, I'll invest into it for a year and then just give me back my money after a year. And so I had a chat with his parents, and the parents were like, "Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And, we'll return the money, et cetera, et cetera." And a year went by and they didn't have the money to pay me back. And so I became an owner in a trucking company that I typically didn't want to be in, but it was just, I guess I'm more faith-based that way too. And I just say, hey, the universe wanted me to have a company. So, I already had one at the time. I don't think I really wanted to take on a second headache at that time. But the big guy has different plans for us sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. That makes sense to me. Logistics. What kind did you do? Like forward warehousing, or what logistics? What does your logistics company do?
Logistics, we pretty much work with. So it's almost like a broker. So logistics is, again, non-asset based, but we're pairing up customers with carriers and helping them move their freight across North America.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any warehouse space or were doing any forward warehousing or any of that type of stuff. Yeah.
None of that. Everything was just more strictly like trucking related, full truckload services, cross Canada, cross US. Yeah, and then
Gotcha.
same thing. Even when we started the logistics side, it was a bunch of people that I knew in the industry, friends of mine that I kind of got together and said, "Hey, let us be your sales team for you." And so we kind of went to market for them.
Nice.
Yeah, and
What's been the most surprising thing to you about being an owner in a business? What has surprised you the most about that role?
a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think there's, again, it's a journey, and there's so many great experiences that you get to experience from being a business owner. There's also a lot of downsides to being a business owner because, again, you get to go through the negative experiences, but as well as the good ones. And so you're always kind of going through this whole roller coaster, but you get to see a lot more of life. And it's really about like treating all these relationships when you are dealing with hundreds of drivers. So we're dealing with that level of work. We're dealing with the business to business work, the B2B. And then you're also dealing with corporate level. So you're having to deal with all sorts of different levels. And then just realizing that pretty much anything that you set your mind to can be achieved on that side too. And it's fun to just be creative with it and say, okay, well, what's possible? And when we started our logistics business, it was out of a 20-foot storage trailer on a farm. We didn't even have any. We didn't have, the lavish office. We didn't have anything that was substantial. And I think at that time, my credit was not even there where I could actually get approved to have a truck or trailer. And
Sure, yeah.
but then out of the blue, I had put our company name into a few directories, and I got a call from our Canadian military saying that they wanted to move equipment with us. And I was working on the 20-foot storage trailer at on a farm, and I said, sure, let's go for it. And so you just realize that anything is possible. So just seeing that type of scenario, being able to take my partners from, let's say, any level that they were at, to be able to bring them up, those are so rewarding. Even when it comes to drivers, you watch these guys get their vehicles, you watch them build their homes, you watch them build up their families. And I think same for you. If you were in the grocery business too, you probably got to see a lot of people's families and what impact that grocery business was making on their lives. And the amount of life that you get to see and to be a part of that, and to be able to, again, whether it's being a mentor or whether it's being in the ability to help nurture some of these relationships and watch his growth patterns, was something that I would never be able to fathom growing up, because I never thought that I would be in that position to be able to help so many people.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. It's terribly important from a leadership perspective to remember that there's real people behind the decisions that you're making, and you have a huge impact on people's lives as someone that's responsible for keeping a company moving and growing and providing for all of the people that count on it, whether it's customers, whether it's employees, all of the stakeholders involved. I learned that lesson fairly early on in my career. I was working for the grocery wholesaler. We bought the company. So the largest wholesaler, we were third largest at the time. The second largest wholesaler in the country filed for bankruptcy. And so we bought their assets out of bankruptcy. We didn't buy the business, we just bought the assets. And so I was part of a very small group. We were up in New England and they were down in Texas. And I went down there for 3 months to integrate that part of the business into our business. And I was responsible for buying, and service levels were terrible. So in grocery, you need to run like a 95 minimum service level. Even that's kind of pushing it. You really want to be 96, 97. They were in the mid 50s because they hadn't been paying their bills and they couldn't get freight moved. And so we stepped in and backstopped all of the payments and said, so I was on the phone with guys like you all the time, and or manufacturers saying, no, I'm paying the bill. Put it on our bill and get a truck under it right now and get it to me. So there was like 3 weeks of that to get things back to where we needed them to be. Those were long days for sure. But the people that were down there, they were all good people. They were all hard workers. But the day I got down there was the day they had announced, here's who's still got a job, because this was going through the business was going through a bankruptcy court. And here's who's got a job for 90 more days. And here's who's got to go pack their stuff up right now and leave. And so we came in as the buyer of the assets. We were actually doing a good thing, but we didn't look like good people because these were people that had just lost their jobs. And then I was working with the people that were left, and they weren't real happy about us being there. But look, it's not hard for me to relate to people and get along with people, and they could see that we were doing good things and that we cared about them. But I would have people come up to me and say, "Hey, I got to leave for a dentist appointment. It's a Thursday because I don't have dental insurance next week and I got to get this thing taken care of before." Or I've got to go meet a realtor because I got to sell my house because I can't afford my mortgage anymore because I'm losing this job and we've only got my wife's income now. Those types of conversations. And that just like burned into my brain. I was in my late 20s, early 30s at the time. And
Wow.
I'll never forget it because I was like, man, if you as a leader let this happen, look at all the lives that you impact. This is people's families and kids and health insurance and ability to pay their bills. And it's just super important from a leadership perspective to always keep that in mind when you're dealing with people, when you're making decisions, when you're talking to people. Just treat them with respect. Tell them the truth. If things are bad, don't pretend they're not. You got to be honest with people, but you got to do it in a way that allows them some respect and some dignity. So I couldn't agree with you more. Like it's terribly important.
Yeah. And that's a constant reminder that we have to tell people. Again, you understand it, Joe, but it's something I try to tell our managers as well is hey, you know what? When you are responsible for someone's paycheck, you cannot hold that over them. Don't let your ego get in the way of your communication. It's exercise compassion first, right? Understand that they're real people. And then, again, there shouldn't be any of this egotism or I'm bigger than somebody, because I always remind them and say, hey, if we don't have drivers or we don't have employees, we don't have a business. Like it's just as simple as that. We're not bigger than anybody else. And for me, it's making sure that we treat that bottom line as well as we can and make them feel respected. And one thing I'm really proud about for 20 years that I've been in as an entrepreneur is we never had to lay anybody off.
Mm.
Yeah, and so that's something that I've always been appreciative of. I mean, we haven't had a couple hundred employees, but we have 100 or so. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where I can understand in larger corporations that stuff can fluctuate a little bit differently. But we've always kind of grown to that level where it's just like a comfort family type of operation. But yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that everyone has enough to be able to eat. You want to make sure they have their benefits, and you want to make sure that they keep growing and they have growing opportunities, that if they wanted to go to different levels, that we're able to provide that for them. And so that's one thing I've always kind of been open to and say, hey, again, another thing why we want to teach this is to not let people feel like they're stuck in any way and that they have options and that we want to help them with those options. And so it's something that, I think that's the thing that we sometimes talk about is why do people leave jobs? And it's usually when they feel like they're stuck or they don't have any options or their boss isn't the best person. It's usually the boss or manager is the reason why a lot of people will leave a business. And so for us, it's about, okay, well, how do we make sure that we be that good employer? How do we make sure we treat everybody with that level of respect and provide those opportunities so that they can actually survive? And sometimes that's the biggest thing is like, how do you survive? And going through that first year of work where I was trying to save money for school and I had nothing to show for it, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, what was the point of just spending a year of my life and having nothing to show at the end for it? And I can't even achieve any of the goals that I want to achieve. How many more years do I want to go through that? And that was where I had to just make that change and say, well, if I can't achieve my goal, then I definitely can't be here. And I'm going to have to figure it out. And that's again where I wish somebody would have been there to be like, hey, you know what, here's jobs that are available to you that you could possibly go after. Or sometimes you're just looking for that little bit of confidence, right, to know that, okay, hey, someone believes in you. And luckily, there was people around me that would just kind of pull me and say, hey, try this, but yeah, you didn't really have a roadmap of what to really follow, and I just knew that I had to get back into school somehow. And that was just the only thing that was on my mind is, okay, finish your education. But yeah, life takes you in so many whirlwinds, and it's about trying to find your footing. And I think nowadays, going back to, whether it's social media or everything else, everything just seems like it's such a huge mountain for people to climb. And
Totally. Yeah. And so
but
you've done something really cool here. You have taken your experiences from your experience as an entrepreneur, and you've created kind of a sales focused mentoring website called logisticsales.com. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So talk about why you felt that was important first, and then let's dig into the website, what it offers, and what you're trying to accomplish with it.
Okay, well, so a couple of reasons why we kind of open this up. One is again for the mentorship. Second one is that even when we look at, let's say, U.S. populations, 46 to 61% of people live paycheck to paycheck. And we talked about some of these situations that can happen at a job, whether it's a job loss, people having to sell their homes because their income has changed, and so many life situations get thrown at us. Like I know even for myself, whether it's having to take care of a family member, whether it's having to take time away from actually working to do something that or a life crisis or a situation that you may have to go through. And a lot of people, I've seen this happen with so many people, whether it's loss of a kid, loss of another loved one, taking care of your parents. There's a time and age where that happens, a health issue. So there's so many things that can happen, but they shake people. And why? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck. So one thing I wanted to do is just help people with that, that financial mindset of saying, okay, hey, well, am I comfortable with this? And because mental health is so prominent nowadays too, that I wanted to say, okay, well, how can we help people's just mental health? Entrepreneurship is one option for that. And having various entrepreneurial type of roles that you can take is another part of that. And so one thing I realized through entrepreneurship is that if you are willing to go through this journey, there's an acceleration that can happen in your income that can be exponential compared to working as an employee somewhere. So we just wanted to let people know, one is just, there's opportunities here. And sometimes we don't know about them right away. But if we're able to go start searching, we're going to start seeing that, hey, there's certain jobs that are paying more than others. And every company in the world has a sales component to it. Whether you're a charity, whether you're any type of business, you're going to have a component of sales that's going to be the driving engine of how that company survives. And so we wanted to start exposing some of these opportunities and say, well, a lot of times we're not even exposed to these opportunities. When I was in transportation, no one told me about a sales role specifically, even though we're all doing it, whether it's customer service, whether it's anything that you're doing in that business, whether it's talking to other people in your company, your relationship building skills, your networking, you're doing it all the time anyways, but are we being monetized for that? So just creating that awareness of saying, hey, where can you start building value into yourself that could help you to get to that next level that you want to get to? And that's kind of why we kind of open up logistics sales. And one of the first episodes that we have, we show the graph of, the employee line versus the entrepreneurship line. And the employee line kind of starts, at a decent level when it comes to income, but then the line is just barely going up, maybe 1-2% every year. It's relatively flat. And you see this where people are tied into businesses with the 401k just to kind of keep you there. And it's like, hey, just stay with us, for the rest of your life, and we'll slowly pay you at the rate of inflation until, you give us 20, 30 years of your life, and then we'll celebrate it. Thank you. Yay. And the other side is entrepreneurship, where you start from zero. So if you have to be willing to kind of start from this bottom level, or if you structure it right, you can start from any level that you want to, if you learn how to communicate. But you can start from any level, but then you have a chance to exponentially grow. And when, after they're, and we show the graph, and then at the 18-month mark is where usually this line matches the employee line. And then all of a sudden it starts to skyrocket, because by then you've already learned how to do the job. And it usually takes about a year and a half to kind of get really into it, where you start figuring it out. You kind of go through the trials and tribulations, and then you're able to start accelerating because now you've figured out what it actually is. And then you kind of go through the trials really with figuring out, okay, how do I communicate? How do I have the ability to influence? How do I understand my product well enough that I'm able to kind of put it into a marketplace? And we also talk about like the misconception about sales too, which is, people think sales is, hey, Joe, I want to sell you something. But we know nowadays, like, sales can be a podcast like this. Sales can be imagery. Sales can be social media. Sales can be emails, writing skills. Sales can be so many things that, again, we don't really grasp the sense of it. And, sales is customer service too. Like it's not rocket science, but again, can we monetize it and show value somewhere and start building those bridges of saying, okay, well, who can we help? Who can we serve? How do I help, somebody in my neighborhood get to the next level too, and create win-win partnerships? So what we try to do is we try to find students and teach them how to match with different businesses, whether it's businesses in their own community or anywhere around them. But one of the first exercises, what we try to do there is just say, hey, look at what's in your community, because a lot of times our eyes aren't really open to knowing what businesses even exist. And so even when we go into a situation like that, what I say is, just zoom out on Google Maps. If you zoom out and you just kind of see what's around you, and you're going to notice that a lot of homes even have business names on them. And so I think the stat is about like 35 million small to medium-sized businesses exist right now in the USA. And 50% of those businesses are going to go out of business within the first 5 years.
Yep.
And so you see half these guys need help, right? And then I'm sure there's probably another good chunk of people that are wanting to supplement their incomes. And that could possibly help these people because they could just share their skill set or whatever knowledge they have to be able to help some of those small businesses. And so that's one thing that we want to see is, okay, well, how do you create win-win partnerships where, again, we could help each other, love thy neighbor to be able to grow together and create some of these opportunities and just let people know that they exist, and they exist probably in their own neighborhood. And it doesn't take much to just think outside the box and say, hey, can I go talk to one of these people and just have a coffee with them and let them know that I'm interested in doing something? And maybe just talking to a small business owner can open you up for some of those ideas. But also, if you've been at a company for 10, 15, 20 years and you've picked up some skills, then teaching people how to leverage those skills to monetize them, to be able to get what you're valued as well. And, again, a lot of it's just going through the different experiences that I went through to realize that, hey, like our employer doesn't hold the financial freedom for our future. We do. And I think just letting people know that if they can understand that in their mindset, either they can come to acceptance with it and say, okay, well, yeah, it's a choice. Do I want to stretch myself or grow myself or do something a little bit different to earn more? Or can I just be comfortable with where I am? And again, and what that's going to help do is just take the anxiety away. The anxiety where everyone thinks I have to go get more, I have to go do more. And so we just say, well, here, let's just lay it out for you so you can figure it out for yourself, whether it's something for you or not, right? And then it's not the only option. Again, education, getting skills, trades, anything else are also different ways that we just teach is like, if you just build your skill sets, now you can leverage those for monetization as well. There's so many different ways to be able to grow, but where do I find those opportunities? How do I know if they even exist? How do I know somebody will even allow me to do that? So we try to teach them about how to position themselves in a way to be able to either get the job, or again get the job that they want that has opportunities to be able to grow down the road. And
yeah,
again,
so I love all that, and we talk about it on this podcast actually fairly frequently. That if you want to earn compensation that is probably outsized versus maybe your education or your technical training, sales is the place that it happens. And there's lots and lots of people that I don't think about sales the right way, because I think what most people picture when they think of sales is like a used car salesman. Oh, I got to get you into a car. What's it going to take to get you into this car today? That is not sales. Is there some version of that's sales? Yeah. But that's not the vast majority of sales. Sales is actually solving customers' problems, which is what it is. And like on your website, which is logisticsales.com, your mission says teach you how to sell, build confidence, and create your own income, no matter where you live, your experience level, or your background. So kind of, and this is free, by the way. There's no charge. There's no, he's not selling anything here. This is an attempt to try to share some of the wisdom and experience that Damon and his associates have gathered over decades of experience in using these tools and techniques to build successful businesses. So the you can't beat the price on what's being offered here because it costs you nothing but your time. So with the mission I just read, how do you guys approach that? What is it you want people to? I know you just talked about like don't get married to a job, control your own destiny. It's in your power if you want to choose to go down this road. But how do you kind of walk people down that don't have experience or don't have the self confidence to jump into it on their own right now?
And so everything we try to do is in just baby steps. Like I said, step one is just look at the opportunities. Step two is just start looking at what type of jobs and businesses exist around yourself so that you could say, okay, well, what's resonating inside of me? What am I attracted to? So not just really putting you down one path, and it's really just taking somebody from where they are as even if it's a beginner level, and slowly just giving you some of those skill sets. So every episode is broken down into something very bite sized, whether it's um, building a resume or just how to work with people or build relationships at a service. So everything that we teach is service based. Again, why? Because so you could kind of face yourself in the mirror after and feel good about what you're doing. But everything's in small bite-sized steps just to kind of carry you along that journey about what sales is. We break down the myths of sales to see if you're even comfortable with that aspect of it. So we're not really pushing people and saying, okay, well, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. It's like, well, hey, just soak in the information and see if it's something that resonates. And again, if you follow the journey, you're definitely going to learn bit by bit by bit by bit. And you'll learn from some of the experiences that we talk about. You'll learn about different types of jobs that you may not even thought existed before or were open to you. And so with everything becoming a global economy, we're also teaching that too, that it doesn't necessarily have to be in your area either. So again, expanding the mind. So what we're trying to do is expand the mindset to show global opportunities. And so that was a lot, one of the bigger reasons why we opened this up as well is when we first got into thinking about, why does this thing need to even exist, is because we were putting out ads for salespeople. And one day I kind of noticed that we had hundreds of people from around the world that were applying with us that I had never really looked into. And usually these are all blocked with spam filters when it comes to any sort of advertising that you're putting out there. And we realized that there was like people from 65 different countries plus from around the world that were looking at jobs in logistics and sales. And so I said, okay, well, one day maybe I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to contact these people because I saw their resumes and I'm like, they're more qualified than the people here in North America. And I'm like, well, why would I want to pass judgment on them? And, let's just give them an opportunity. So I said, okay, whoever is willing to send in, videos and do sales pitches and, we'll evaluate your skills and see who really wants to really do this. And so a lot of people started having interest and a lot of people started sending their videos to us. And we gave some of these people opportunities, and some of these people that were situated halfway around the world were having meetings with some of the largest retailers in the USA. And I sat in on some of those meetings on Zoom with these guys. And I was like, okay, well, and their English level wasn't the greatest, but they were able to have conversations and they were able to get into, again, like I think there was like Target was one of them, Home Depot was one of them, but they were able to get in with their supply chains and have meetings at a corporate level. And I said, okay, well, if that's possible, it's probably possible for everybody else. And there's so many different jobs that are happening remotely or offshore jobs that are happening, in the US right now that you just see that, well, there's opportunities everywhere. And just a matter of just pairing some of these together to give people those opportunities or just even exposing to them that, hey, you could build these type of relationships and create that type of work culture that could benefit everybody and on a global basis, not even just in one. I mean, when you look at some of the wages that are being paid around the world too, if you're a small business or a medium-sized business, one of the biggest restraints is cash flow and being able to pay somebody, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 salary when you're barely making that yourself. But then there's people around the world where a decent wage in a country could be, $200-$300 US per month. and people are happy to be, and that's a fair wage in some of these countries. And so when you say, well, hey, I could afford $500 a month, I could afford $600 a month, why not I try to grab somebody that needs an opportunity and start pairing up with them and saying, okay, well, hey, can I provide these type of opportunities? Can they help me grow my business? If I can grow my business and get that little bit of help, now can I create more jobs where I live? And sometimes you just need somebody, right? You're looking for that little bit of help. And so when we saw that, there's no difference between somebody on a phone here versus somebody on a phone abroad, or somebody on a computer sitting abroad, like even us, we're sitting in two different countries, but we're having this
Yeah, right.
conversation. Yeah. And then just say, hey, who am I to judge? Again, I try not to pass judgment anytime I'm with anybody. And it's just like, okay, well, yeah, there's people all around us that need opportunities and they just don't know where to find them. But, can we be a platform for even those people to come together and do something great? Like, it's building communities, it's supporting each other. And the other part of what we do too is build that community where you can have that support. And it's not, the Wolf of Wall Street, or that car salesman, used car salesman attitude.
Right.
But we're just trying to do everything in a just a loving way, where it's just it's just that encouragement, that love and encouragement, and just those small steps to be able to kind of just push you and give you knowledge, right? And that's the main thing, is get the knowledge, expand the mind. And we're not really saying, you have to do this, but we're saying here's one option for you in life that's going to make you feel unstuck when you realize that everything that you do in life is a choice. And that's the main thing, for me, is sending that message out and saying financial freedom is always, it's in your hand. It's a choice that you can make at any time. You don't need to feel bound by anything, but you will have to be able to push yourself just a little bit. And so what we try to drop is those little tiny habits that you can start developing to do it. And again, how hard is it to maybe just jump on LinkedIn and send somebody a question, or make a value proposition, right? And say, hey, I just want to see if I could have a conversation with you and see if I could help your business. Here's some of those things that I think I do good in life. So we do that, where we get people to evaluate themselves, right? And take a look at their own skill sets and see how they can match up or line up with maybe another business. And so, there's so many businesses I know I used to drive by, and because I'm in transportation now, I look at every industrial business. And
Yeah.
so before, I was oblivious to it. And so just like, again, what's in our vision? There's so many things that we're just missing on a day-to-day basis, but there's opportunities all around us. And so we're just trying to teach people, like, it's there, it's everywhere. We'll show you. Follow us on the program and we'll show you that there's opportunities in every corner of where you live.
So how does it work? So someone goes to your website, what do they do? Do they sign up? Do they take courses? Like, what's the process look like?
Yeah, so the first three courses, the first three episodes are right on the website. Simply subscribe and you'll get a weekly episode every week. Follow it all the way through. Nothing complicated. And there's a chance to get some scholarships too.
Yeah, I saw that. How does the scholarship thing work? Like, what is that about?
Just apply and yeah, we'll kind of put you into the name of people that are applying for scholarships, and if we can hand them out, and yeah, it was just a small way to kind of just say, thank you for trying your best, and we have worksheets that go along with every episode after the first 2 or 3 episodes, and so we're hoping that people will take the coursework seriously and be able to do it. But we're hoping that if they, maybe that's an ask that we'll make. Again, we only started this in December, so what we're doing is just hoping that somebody would just do all the coursework that comes along with it, hand it in, and that would be their application to get the scholarship.
Got it. Yeah, and I was just going to say, I know you haven't launched, it hasn't been launched for very long, but have you got any feedback? What are your initial thoughts on reception, or people that have tried it, or feedback you've gotten from people?
Everyone loves the concept. Everyone loves the idea of it. Again, it's whatever you want from there, right? Is what you're going to take away. And yeah, feedback for us has been great. I mean, it's a free service that we're offering, so no one's really gonna come down hard on you. But yeah, there's all sorts of comments that we get back. Some positive, sometimes negative, and so you just kind of roll with it, and you just say, okay, well, end of the day, we're just trying to serve people, and if people like it, great. And we are starting to get some followers on there. I think so. We again just starting in December, but like January was about 20,000 views that we're able to get, and we're getting the followers on there slowly. What we're trying to do is reach out to schools and communities, and especially places around the world where North American education could be a benefit to them. So we're trying to really give that information away for free, and it's not really meant for like a podcast type of situation as it is more as course learning. So it's a little bit slow, right? But we're trying to make it a little bit animated in there so that there's something to keep you entertained along the way. And there's the questions that pop up every so often on the screen, which is again making you just think. And so it's kind of like a fun way to do online learning.
I love it. So for the listeners, like I went through their website before, but I've got it pulled up now. Some of the things they're talking about. We help you learn how to identify industries and businesses that need sales help, build client lists and targeting strategies, communicate value clearly and confidently, sell ethically and professionally. I love that that's in there because this isn't snake oil or some multi-level marketing scheme, close deals and create recurring income, use sales skills to build a career, a side business, or even your own company. And I feel very strongly about sales because most people engage in sales every day. They just don't know that they're engaged in sales. And so I always say, if you're in a relationship, you're in sales. If you have children, you're in sales. If you're in any type of business, even if you work internally in the businesses, it's not customer facing, you're in sales because you're interacting with other departments and other people. And anything you can do to develop the skills by which you communicate with other people to try to gain credibility and confidence in your agenda, your point of view, the direction that you want to take your department, you are in sales. You just don't know it. And I don't think you can ever get enough sales training. Personally, I've been through hours, if not days, of sales training. I still take sales training because there's always more to learn. At least that's the way I think about it. So I love that you offer all that. And it's pretty impressive that you guys are doing this for free.
Well, it's the people that I partnered up with on this. They're all based on service as well. So industry is treating them well. They learn how to break through their own sales blocks that they had. And, for the 20 years that I've been doing a little bit of the sales, the only thing that we ever do is we just take away people's blocks. A lot of people are just naturally good at communication, but the fears that get set in is what deters them from actually pushing through. And so what we're always trying to do is just eliminate the fear so they could be themselves. And I think, that's other journey that people get onto when they start getting into growth or self-development is that they realize, how many skills that they've already had inside of them. And we're just trying to pull that out and say, hey, you've already been ingrained with such great skills in your life. Why not use it if you want to, right? Or if you enjoy what you're already doing, just keep going at it. But again, it's the quality of your relationships may change. The way that you communicate may change. So again, it's just that, that mindset shift is what we really want people to have in life. And what we want also is just if we're able to help you get lifted up and see opportunities, just lift the next person up too. And that's the biggest thing that we just want, in return is, hey, you know what, try it first. If it works for you, just lift somebody else up. Or again, spread positivity. Again, it's not about doom and gloom, but it's about, hey, how can we all just lift each other up? And it's all in our own hands to be able to do so. And again, it's not rocket science, right? We realize that it's something that we do on a day-to-day basis. It could be rocket science if you want it to be, right? But
if you're a rocket scientist, yeah.
100%. Yeah. Go. We'll teach you how to talk to Elon Musk and get into that company. And it's all about how do you present yourself as a, in value proposition. So, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that sometimes people face is not getting the raises that they want at work. And so, a lot of times as an employer, you want the employee to come at it with some sort of foundation of why they want to raise. And so we teach that and say, okay, well, how do you show the value that you bring a company and leverage that to be able to get the raise that you want? So everything value based, and just understanding that how do we work in a relationship here? If your employer needs to make money to be able to pay you. And, again, if we're all asking for raises at the same time and no one's looking out for the employer, then the employer is eventually going to go bankrupt. Like, that story you told us about the grocery chain, right? So it's like, okay, everybody wants, but nobody wants to give, to the company. And then eventually, if you just look at it as a big wallet, what's going to happen? Money keeps coming out. There's nothing left, right? Who's going to replenish it? So you need people to help replenish it, but the people that help replenish it can easily help take it out too. And so just teaching value aspects.
Absolutely. And, anecdotal evidence to support everything Daman just said. Harvard Business School did a study to try to understand what the trait or traits were that successful people had in common. And successful people is measured by people that were able to climb to levels in a company where they could make decisions, where they got really good compensation, where they had a lot of responsibility. And the number one item on that list was the ability to sell internally. So, like we had talked about a little bit ago, not even just selling to customers or growing the business, but what is your ability to communicate in an effective way to the decision makers inside your organization, which is what Daman just touched on. So if you want to raise, how do you help the company do really well and be in a position, one, to be able to pay you that raise, and then two, to get recognized by the people in your company who make the decisions on how compensation is determined. That's sales. And the ability to sell internally was the number one characteristic that successful people had in common. So even if you're not interested in entrepreneurship, even if you're not interested in a side hustle, even if you're not interested in pursuing the sales vertical per se, these are invaluable skills you can use not only in business, but I would argue in your personal life as well. Because if you're able to communicate effectively with the people around you that are important to you, you're going to strengthen those relationships, and you're going to be able to cultivate those relationships in a more effective way. So, like, there's literally no downside here. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's going to sharpen a skill that's invaluable in both your personal and professional life. So that's the way I think about it, at least. I don't see why people wouldn't give this a shot. It costs you nothing. There's great resources from people who have been very successful in the world. They're giving it to you for free. Take a look at it. That's my argument.
And Joe, you mentioned some good points there. One is, again, finding those key influencers and knowing how to network within an organization. But this comes in so handy for people that are looking for jobs. So many students, and I get called to universities to talk about this sometimes and get fielded questions left, right, and center. But so many people just go into just spraying their resume around, thinking that that's the answer to get a job. But then again, it's okay, well, how can you even, so what we teach in the program too is how do you find those key influencing people in the companies, their HR departments, or maybe operations managers, or different titles and different meanings for those titles. But when you start looking at organizations and building a connection from the outside in, you're probably going to have a better chance to be able to communicate why they should be able to maybe be able to take you on as a student, as a university grad. But how many people have university certificates right now that are unemployable? And hold on, maybe did somebody teach them how to find a job? And that's the thing is, okay, well, is it just about handing out random resumes, or is it about that relationship building? And is it also understanding that, hey, you know what? If someone's not giving me a job, can I go get one still? How can I be in charge of that instead of watching the job boards? Can I take that into my own hands? Can I start building relationships? Can I volunteer in the places where I want to start working? And just different strategies to be able to implement to say that, hey, you know what? That's in my hands too. It's not up to somebody else for them to put up a job for me to get that job and apply to it. Let me go beat the 100,000 people, whatever it is, and go apply directly to the job that's not even advertised. And let me go see that, which company can use my services or my degree, and then be able to leverage that and say, hey, you know what, this is what, here's my proposal, or here's here's what I want to be able to do in a career and workplace. Are you able to provide this for me? So just saying that even that's in your hands, and so many kids don't need to be stuck. And so even when it comes to like Gen Z, 50% of these guys think that buying a home in their generation is not achievable. So there's so many blocks that are getting put into people that we're trying to eliminate and say it's in your hands. Stop thinking that it's in someone else's hands. Don't blame. Take responsibility and open up the mindset. So they talk about people that start hitting a brick wall. Oh, I handed out my resume 100 times, and they're just doing this, and they don't realize that around the wall here you can go around. Right? There's so many ways around it, but if you only know one thing to do, you're so focused on that one point. And I hear stories all the time about kids that are sitting at home now because they went to university, they got a degree, but they can't find the right job now. But it's like, well, what are you trying? How are you trying that? And so again, how to take action to be able to solve any problem. And sales, again, is just problem solving. We talked about that before too. It's just problem solving. So again, you can solve so many problems in your own life just if you realize that there's so many different options that are always available. It's just not always the one that we think that we focus on is always truly what's real. But it's like expansion and realizing that there's multiple ways to do one thing.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, if you've tried something and it didn't work, why do you keep doing it again, expecting it to work? Like, I can't remember where I saw it. I think it was LinkedIn, but within the last 6 months, 70% of the job openings that get filled, even with applicant tracking systems and even with all of the electronic tools that are available, 70% of the jobs that get filled right now are through word of mouth and or referrals, meaning I did the electronic process, but I knew someone in the company. I called them. I got my resume in front of the right people. And that's what led to the job that I got. Like, that's still 70%. And simply flinging resumes, I call it spray and pray, flinging a bunch of resumes, hoping someone notices you is probably not going to get you where you want to be. So why not learn different techniques? Networking is sales. That's all it is you're setting up sales that might not happen now, might happen somewhere down the road, but having tons of people in your network is a good thing. It's one of the things I love about the podcast. I have literally connected people that have been on the podcast on different times with each other, that have collaborated with each other, that have done business with each other. And all I did, excuse me, was connected those people. Who knows? There may be some benefit to me down the road financially. I don't know. And I don't care. It's not the point. I connected and helped people. And now I've got an ally in that person. Who knows? Maybe we'll just be friends. Maybe we'll just have a great relationship. That's cool. Maybe it'll pay off in a different way. That's cool too. But why would you not do that if you're able to do it? And you've got to be willing to put yourself out there and have conversations with people in a meaningful way if you're going to make those connections. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I always say, the more good that we put out in the world, it eventually comes back in different ways, and we just don't realize it. But the universe definitely has a way to balance things out. And if we talk about karma or any of these things, the what you're putting out is going to be exactly what keeps coming back. And so, yeah, great for you, Joe, to be able to network and put those people together. But that's possible for anyone. And just say, hey, I noticed this, and I could put these two together, and that's it. If our mind is open to it. That's the biggest thing is if we could open up our minds, it's a matter of what are we putting into our minds. And for me, a big thing is also just letting people know that there's people out there that care about what is being put into your mind and how can we do it in a positive way where it could open you up to different experiences and to a greater enjoyment in life as well. Just knowing that everything is in these hands that we have, right? It's in this mindset that we have. And if we could shift it just a tiny bit, and Tony Robbins talks about this, like, that 1 millimeter shift on either side, it can go either way, but it could be life changing if that 1 millimeter just switches on one side. And again, when I go back to whether it's mental health or any of these, they say worldwide 1 in 8 people suffer from mental health disorders. It's in some form or another, and it's almost 1 billion people. And so it's like, okay, well, how do we build communities where we can help people like that get out of this sort of stress? I think it's a lot of it's self-created, But again, if we can show people that there's options, then it just lets them breathe a little bit easier. And that's it. It just gives them a sense of hope. And hopefully we can build communities where those examples can be shared over and over again. And I know you do a great job of this, Joe, on your show, is just showing people about all the different ways to be able to live their life, adjust their mindsets, and introduce people to them that can show them different ways of looking at any situation. And so again, I'm definitely, I subscribe to your to your channel, and that was one of the biggest things. I'm like, wow, I'd love to soak in more of your podcast so I can learn for myself as well, and just be able to learn from some of the experts that come on. And I love the way that you're doing your interviews with everybody, because you're able to get those positive stories out there, and that just gives everybody hope, and can help carry that community forward and forward. And so if I could spread that message for you, that's something that I would love to do.
Yeah, it's been awesome having you on. There is no one right way, but there's a right way for everyone. You, as the owner of your life, and everybody is the owner of their life, whether you want to accept that responsibility or not, it is true. But you, as the owner of your life, have to find the right way for you. And the entire point of our podcast is we find awesome people. They come from all walks of life. Some are young, some are old, some are male, some are female, some are rich, some are not. It doesn't matter. They all have really good things that they've learned from life, and they share those with you, so that maybe if you hear it from me, it doesn't resonate, but you hear it from Daman, or you hear it from one of our other guests, it resonates with you. That's the whole point. That's all we're trying to do, is get it out in front of people so that they can understand you've got options, you've got choices. In order for them to work, you have to take action. And you heard about Daman talk about his path from college student to business owner. Look at all the actions that he took along the way. Didn't know where it was leading him, didn't have necessarily a plan or a linear path that I'm going to go right from here to here. But because he consistently took action, because he consistently developed his skills, because he consistently problem solved, he kept putting himself in situations where new opportunities and additional people kept presenting themselves to him. And look at where he wound up, because he wasn't afraid to try, because he wasn't afraid to take on things that he didn't know how to do, because he wasn't afraid to pursue new opportunities. And that's where you've got to get to if you want to have a successful life. It's however you want it to work. And I just feel very strongly about that. And that's kind of the whole point of the podcast. But look, Daman, I always wrap this up the same way. I feel like we cover a lot of territory, and we have awesome guests on, yourself included. I don't want to miss anything because I didn't ask the right questions or I didn't bring up the right subject. So the very last thing we do in all of our interviews is ask our guest, you, is there anything I haven't asked you about? Is there any topic we haven't talked about that you feel strongly about that you want to talk about while we're in front of the audience? Wide open. If there is nothing, that's no problem. I just want to miss having you on and getting every ounce of your expertise and your knowledge out of you by limiting the conversation. So the floor is yours. Is there anything that we haven't done yet?
No, it's just more for talking to the audience and just saying, hey, if you're looking for opportunities in life or you want to expand your mindset, definitely, subscribe to Logistics Sales, subscribe to Salty Ginger, and open up your mind to trying new opportunities. And don't be scared to try something new. If it's something that is going to drive you towards where you want to go to in life, just know that there's people that love you and that want to see you do well in life. And that's usually one of my biggest rewards, is watching people grow. And that's always been one of the biggest reasons why, business has been so great for me, and just relationship building has been so great, is to watch people grow. And so just choosing the right community where people are growing together definitely makes it a lot easier. And doing it from places where you can start with zero intentions of any expectations, right? So you don't really need to have any expectations. You don't really have to worry about, I have to go reach this huge mountain top right away. It's about, hey, what can I just do for that small step today that could eventually add up? And we all have time on our hands. We all have some moments where we can actually take, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, or a week even, whatever that looks like for you, but to be able to say, okay, how can I impact my life positively in a way where it'll help me, make me feel better, and I could also start making other people feel better because I'm pouring into myself and teaching myself and allowing myself to grow and open myself up to opportunities, and knowing that there's safe places where you're able to do that. And we're here to encourage it. So even with our show, reach out to us, leave us comments. We'd love to help you in any which way we can. We are offering 20-minute sessions to people if they feel like they've gone through some of the episodes and they have questions and they want to go through and have a one-on-one conversation about, how do I do this value proposition? How do I, achieve the step that I'm trying to get to? But, whatever opens up in your vibration to whatever you want to do, contact us. We'll try to help you to get to the next step. And we do have some of that time now, but again, only 20-minute slots that we could offer. But definitely reach out and email us, and we'd love to help you at no cost. There's nothing that we want to see, but we want to hear your success stories of how some of these small steps are going to add up in your life, and how you're going to start seeing that things are possible for you. And maybe just one example of a student that we have with us, but a 17-year-old student, and he came and did some summer work with us. And recently, his dad got laid off from his trucking job, and there was a contract that these people had with a larger disposal company or recycler, and so I'm like, hey, we just taught your son all about this stuff. I had to have corporate meetings, and so 17 years old, he prepared a letter, which again, this is what grade 12 education gives you, is just able to prepare a letter, did it from the heart, right? Talked about his dad and what he was looking for from the company. Kind of mentioned that he's been working as a contractor with this company for 3.5 years, and they kind of went into a little bit of the details and told them what happened with their employer. And what happened was the employer went in there, tried to negotiate a contract, blew up, and everything fell apart. They were just saying, hey, we want to continue your contract for 6 to 9 months more, but he's like, no, I want it permanently. And it was just like it blew up. And so anyways, the young man was able to go in there. He went in with the letter, and we told him we're like, go in person, right? Don't be scared of what they're going to say or what they're going to think. He went to the first person. The first person took him to his supervisor. His supervisor took him to the next supervisor, and he actually was able to talk at a very high level with one of the main directors at the company, and they were so appreciative of him coming in there and sharing his story with them, that they're like, hey, hold on, let us, we're going to get back to you. And, thank you so much for letting us know, because they had no idea. A lot of people have no idea what's happening on these lower levels. But to be able to get that information in such a way that was heartfelt, and, people don't think it's possible. A lot of people, like, the dad as a driver had no idea that we could even go talk to a corporation, that they would even listen to us, besides the shipping and receiving door. Right. And the young man, himself, who thought that he would be in a situation to be able to help his dad at 17 years of age and trying to fight for, their job. And so again, that's the thing that we want to just show people, that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your age is. It's just a matter of knowing that there's always a different solution available, and anyone can do it. And, same thing. If a 17-year-old can do it, then he had doubts, right? He was just like, and I just said, no, write the letter now, write the letter now, write the letter now.
Yes.
You can do this. And it's just that little sense of encouragement. And that's just it. It's already in you. And so what we're just trying to do is just push it a little bit to be able to say, okay, hey, yeah, get the fear out, stop thinking about all these programs where we have that we can't do something, that we can't talk to somebody, that no one's going to give us the time. How am I going to look? And same thing is, if we get this out of our minds, then we realize that, people are just human beings. They're just normal people. And if, one thing is what we're trying to do is just help people in the heart space feel good. And if we could just realize that, hey, at the end of the day, we all have a heart. And that's the biggest thing, that if we learn how to connect with each other's heart space and just be genuine from that aspect, and not in a place where we want to take, but learn how to serve and add value and do it from sincerity, that we can actually have really good outcomes in life. But as long as we understand that, okay, hey, what is it that I'm putting forward, and how is that, so we're not, again, putting somebody in a hard situation, but how can we make it so it's a win-win situation for everybody involved, right? And that's me too. anything's possible. It's just a matter of, what we think we can create. And we want to show people that that's true and that it's possible for anybody, regardless of where you live, your background, your financial status, anything. Like anything is possible once you just put your mind to it. And again, even if you want to start a business, like you don't need money to start a business, right? Like the value, and this is any entrepreneur will tell you this. Most entrepreneurs are already invested into their business. And coming into a business, you don't necessarily need money. The biggest value is the person that's in that business. And so anyone that's made money in business will tell you, you can put money at anything, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to grow. But if you have the right person that you're putting that money into, it will grow. And you have the ability to be able to influence any business by just your own presence. If you have a genuine want and need to want to grow and do something amazing in your life, people will give you those opportunities. And people, if you structure it the right way, will possibly give you a part of their business too. Because they're like, yeah, you know what? If you watch Shark Tank, they always invest in the person. It's not the business is one thing, but it's the person that they're looking at. And that's one thing that people need to realize, that, hey, anything's possible. Just got to learn how to position it.
Man, I couldn't have said it better, so I'm not even going to try. Look, guys, the website is logisticsales.com. We will have a link, hyperlink down in the show notes so you can go right to it. Daman, thank you so much for joining us. I loved our conversation. I love what you're doing. I love the positive message. I love that you're giving back and doing all this to try to help other people experience some of the success you've been able to experience. So kudos to you and your partners for putting this together. Really enjoyed having you on. We'll keep you on the follow-up list so we can do this again and check in with you down the road and see how things are going. I know you just launched, but we'll give it a little bit of time and then check back in with you and see if we can have you come on and share some more success stories from logisticsales.com. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Loved our conversation.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you for everybody that's watching Salty Ginger. Appreciate it. If you can help spread the word, that'd be great. Thank you so much. And if you know of any schools that need free education, please, send us their way so we could hopefully put up some learning management systems in place so that they could teach people for free.
Oh, that's a great anecdote. So guys, yeah, make sure if you know any place that's looking for educational materials, send them to logisticsales.com so they can get in touch with Daman. So that's awesome. All right. Thanks, Daman. Really appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, there you go. So great background from Daman there, talking about coming from a single parent home and kind of grinding his way through university and continuing, like ran out of scholarship money, continued to work hard to put himself back into university, and then his path in the transportation industry to the point now where he owns and operates his own transportation logistics company, has worked with partners to put together the logisticsales.com tool that's free to you. And you heard us espouse all of the reasons why we think, even if you're not interested in pursuing a career in sales or starting your own business, there's a ton of value in going through this training because it's going to help you with internal conversations, with personal conversations, all good stuff. So really appreciate Daman coming on and sharing all that time with us, taking time out of his busy schedule to share that with our listeners. And we will have Daman back on somewhere down the road after they've had a little more road under the tires on logisticsales.com so we can see how it's going and see if Daman can share his learnings, some more success stories with us. So really appreciate him coming on. He did a great job and you'll see him again. So James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website. We have awesome guests that share awesome things with you. We have awesome content that helps you build a life of meaning and purpose. You don't want to miss any of that stuff. So make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.